and this sounds very childish, they did it first. Right? But that disrespect is a form of violence. And then lastly, one of the reasons that we don't get respect is that we say to people, or have you ever heard someone say, you have to earn my respect? Have you heard that? Someone say that? Right? That is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard in my life. It's laughable. It's impossible. And I learned that at an early age. Right? So here I am, 9 years old in my dad's church, and there was a girl who was in our youth group. Her name was Ruthie Furlow. Ruthie was 13, because I like older women. So here I am, 9, Ruthie is 13, and I'm always trying to get Ruthie's attention. And so one day, I captured her eye, right? And she said, Andre, come here. And she said, Andre, if you like me, you'll do A, B, and C. So what did I do? I went and did it. I did A, B, and C. I came back with the newspaper in my mouth. And she said, Andre, if you really, really like me, you'll do X, Y, Z. So, what do you think I did? I accomplished that task too. So I'm coming back, and now I'm like, and she says, Andre, if you really, really like me, you'll do 1, 2, 3. And what do you think I did? I ran as far away from Ruthie as I possibly could. Because it became clear that what? No matter what I did to win her, I was not going to do it. It was not going to happen. And a lot of times respect is the same way. We say, I want this level of respect, but as people get closer to that, we change it, or it's different for different people. And I'll never forget this lesson that I learned from my students. So my students were a bit antisocial, as most teenagers kind of are, right? So that, the outside world is a threat to them in so many different ways. And so they build up these tools and these scabs and these shields to protect themselves from the outside world, which typically kind of looks to, as to adults as if they're, being antisocial. But the world out there really, as Michael Jackson would say, doesn't care about us, right? And so they have this whole worldview. And so I'm working with the kids, and I'm teaching them social skills and how to shake hands and make positive eye contact, because they're used to eye contact being something they call mean mugging, right? You look too long at me, that means we're about to fight, get down, right? All that kind of stuff, right? Mean mugging. And so I'm teaching them all these great social behaviors. And so I said, as a project, we're going to do a service learning project for the community. And so we want to survey the community to find out what the needs are, because that's what we do when we're in bureaucracies, right? So we go out and we survey and we get information to help us make our decisions. And so I send my kids out, and they have T-shirts that have the name of the school on them, and they have clipboards, and they have, little whistles, and I tried to do everything I possibly could to make them look as official as possible. And so they go up to the door, and what do people do? Slam the door in their face. Look through the mirror, look through the glass, not respond to them. Be disrespectful to them, all this kind of stuff. And so my students' inclination was to knock somebody out. But I had trained them not to do that, right? And so, they would do their breathing exercises, count to 10. But I have to tell you, I was so disappointed, because here I am preparing these kids to go out and do this really good thing, and I had done a really great job of getting my ducks in order, and then only to send them out to the world. And so now they're coming back to me and asking me why all the stuff that I taught them did not work. And I have to give them a what? An answer. And I'm not going to give them the answer that they're expecting, because they want an excuse to go back to their old ways of behavior. They want an excuse. And so now they're looking at me to give them the excuse to go back and do what they used to do. But I'm not going to do that, because I'm smarter and I know that they're better than who they used to be. And so one of the things that I tell them that actually transformed my own life as I'm telling it to them was that respect is never something you can earn. You can only give it away. Now, the interesting thing about giving something away is that you can't give away what you don't have. My credit card company tried that once, right? You can't give away what you don't have. And so if you want to get respect, you must give it. Now, here's the real trick that people sometimes forget or they don't realize or notice about themselves is that it is easy to give respect to someone who is what? Respectful to you. That's easy. Anybody can do that. But as government employees, people who are servants of the public, we're asked to be supermen and superwomen, to go above and beyond to make things happen. And so part of our charge is to not just do the ordinary thing, but we have to give respect to people who are being disrespectful to us. And what happens when you are being respectful in the face of disrespect? What happens? What do people say? There's usually two things that people say. The first one is, man, I don't know how she did that. Right? Wow, she's a better person than I am because I just would have lost it. Right? So that's what people say. The other thing is people say, don't be a, say it, don't be a doormat. Don't let people walk all over you. Have you ever heard someone say that? Right? How many people have a doormat? Please raise your hand. Why do we all have doormats? Because we need to wipe our feet. Why else do we have doormats? Anyone have those pretty ones with welcome on it? Right? Yeah. Right? We have doormats because they serve a purpose. And so first of all, that whole misnomer, don't be a doormat, you might be serving a purpose. Somebody might need to get something off their chest and you just happen to be the one to do it. But the other part of that statement that is problematic is that you've just turned the whole situation to be about who? You. As if you really are the center of the entire universe. When in fact, that's not necessarily true. You may be a really good satellite in the universe, right? And so we try to make that stuff all about us. And so what I would encourage you to think about is think of yourselves either as a doormat with a purpose, that maybe this is the person that needs to dust their feet off and they need to do it here. And what do you do when your doormat gets too full of dirt? You shake it off. And do you throw it away? Typically not. I'm on a budget. So I'm going to shake it out a few times before I get rid of it, right? But I would also like to say that if you think about the verbs that occur on a mat, you wipe your feet on it, you stomp on it, you walk on it. I would say that you do those things on a doormat, but you can also do those things on a bridge. And what's the difference between being a doormat and being a bridge? What's the difference?
A bridge connects two things.
A bridge can connect two things. A bridge can be a tool that carries someone over an obstacle, right? So I live in Mounds View, and it's really not a diversity mecca, Mounds View, right? So it's Saturday afternoon, and I'm grabbing all my stuff to do my Saturday routines, and I decide to grab some lunch. So it's about 10:30 in the morning, so I go into a local restaurant to go grab some food, and I check out my signs of safety, right? So I want to know where all the exits are, the fire extinguishers, and the people in the bar and stuff. And when I go into the bar, what I notice is that there is a guy that's drunk at the end of the bar. I mean, red face, just drunk, slurred speech, the whole caricature, right? And it's 10:30 in the morning. So there's a couple of things that I know about this guy, right? He obviously comes to the bar pretty often. And the staff know him to allow him to get that drunk this early in the morning. The second thing that I also recognize is that he probably feels like this is his home, right? He's comfortable here. And that I might be perceived as an outsider to his home, right? So I recognize all that, and I order my lunch, and I close the menu. And in the process of closing the menu, the guy has moved from the end of the bar right next to me. And I'm like, So I taught high school. I worked in the residential treatment center. I wrestled in high school. So I'm not afraid of a fight. We can get down, right? But drunk people they make me nervous because they're just so unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. And so I just kind of sigh, and we start making small talk about the weather and all sorts of stuff. And then he moves into his thesis as to why he sat next to me. And he says, you know what? I don't like niggers. And I'm like, whoa, that's a heck of an introduction. Right? And so I do what any good Minnesotan would do and change the subject, right? So I changed the subject, but then something in my heart said, go back to that. Right? So I go back to it and I say, well, when you use that word, what are you talking about? And he says, I'm talking about people who are uneducated, inarticulate, people on welfare, and, he had all this negative stuff to say. And so I asked him just a simple question, do you know any white people who fit that category? And he says, yes. So I said, oh, how about those twins? So we start talking about sports and all that kind of stuff. And then he leans back over to me and he says, you know what? I don't like niggers, but I like you. Now, I'm really conflicted about all of this stuff, right? And so I just asked a follow-up question. I said, well, when you use that word, when you say you like me, what is it about me that you like? And he said, you seem to have a good head on your shoulders, you're educated, you got a good job, and, all this good stuff he's saying about me. And so I look at him and I said, what if all the people who you think look like me, all the people that you think look like me that you've met were idiots, and everybody else that you haven't met yet is just like me? And he looks at me and he says, I gotta pee. So he gets up and he goes off to the restroom, and I'm like, I'm gonna get out of here. We haven't had any major altercations. Let me just get out of here. And so I get my check. I start heading towards the door, and guess who meets me at the door? It's this guy.